It's War Dragon time. Hey everybody, RPW here. I know that this channel is now considered Christy, my real name, but it will still have some War Dragons videos. In fact, I think I'm going to be bringing them on Wednesdays. If you're not familiar with this, on this channel, I have the popular videos from the past of Talk Dragon Tuesday, the Atlas Explorer series, along with beginner guides and many other things. Now, we're actually going into a new series called This, Not That, where we go through beginner tips about different areas within the game. Now, this week, we're going to be going over the Atlas Beginners 10 biggest mistakes. Now, we actually had a poll on this on my page here in YouTube, and this was the winner. So we're going to be going over the 10 biggest mistakes that's usually made by beginners in Atlas. Now, this doesn't mean like in the first 10 days or the first week. This could be over a period of a month or two or whatever. So this is going to be a general mistake grouping, whether it be your own personal play style or, you know, within a team in general. So let's go ahead and jump into the first one. I think there's a lot of us guilty of this, and that's hitting Primarks before checking the enemy list. Now, in order to check an enemy list, you can go into your chat, and normally your team is going to let you know what, Primark teams are going to be open for attack. So if you're going on a castle to take that castle, usually prior to, they're going to say, all right, guys, these are the enemies. We're going to take this castle out. Let's go hit. Do not hit anybody outside of that enemy list. And unfortunately, we've got players that are somewhat new and don't understand that there is an enemy list for them to go off. If you have an Alliance chat or an Atlas chat, it's normally going to be posted there. And it could change. They could add a team or take off a team. You never know. And the reason that it is important is because one week a team could be your enemy, and the next week they either be a no-hit or non-enemy allied team. So just because a player has a red Primark does not necessarily mean that they're an enemy. There are larger types of alliances out there where many different little 5-team alliances come together and create a much larger alliance to support one another. So if you're newer to Atlas, make sure you understand who you can hit. You don't have to understand the vastness of an alliance, but as long as you know who it is you're allowed to hit, you're going to do okay. But again, I think we've all been somewhat guilty of this, but here's the problem. If you hit someone in your alliance, your team will owe that team gold. So always make sure, because that can be a very costly mistake. Okay, so No Man's Land used to be a big one that a lot of us would say, go get your glory on, especially back before, everything got so complicated when it come to the way the mechanics of glory worked. But it's not necessarily the best place to get your glory, especially if you're on a team that has an alliance. So let's say you are a non-allied team and you have no castles really to defend or protect or gather, then yes, go for it. Go out to No Man's Land and have a blast. But if you're on a team, and especially a team that is hit regularly, or you're allied with a team that's being hit regularly, you're better off defending your own or your allied castles than you are in No Man's Land. And what I mean by that is, not only are you going to get better glory, but you're going to have less troop losses permanently. So you can really waste a lot of your troops on some really what I call crap glory in No Man's Land. So let's say you're a level 100, you got to No Man's Land, and then a level 180 attacks you. There's no way you're going to be able to defend against that. And if you're not even familiar with the mechanics of how to do this, you're going to find yourself in a situation where they're going to finish you off before you can finish them. So just be very, very wary about using No Man's Land as your glory location, better known as Allegheny. Just keep that in mind and try to instead utilize your team and the activity within it in order to get that glory for yourself. Right, so as for number 3, rushing into attacks. Now, the reason that this is pretty important, I think a lot of people missed my video on this a while back, where you need to really pay attention to what Primarks you're attacking. And I'm not talking the level of the player, but number one, I would always check to see, of course, what level they are, as you say, but the big one would be how many troops do they have and what kind of Primark are they using? And do they have any buffs on them or debuffs on them? If you just rush into an attack, you could find that you lose all your troops and get 5 whopping chests out of it. You also want to make sure that you have troops on your Primark as well. So if you put 1 on your Primark and you just, you've got 1 on your Primark and you just rush into the castle for an attack, then you could be stuck there and then they not even want to attack you because you've only got 1 troop. And now you're a sitting duck waiting to get back out of there after the cooldown to an area where you can add troops because there's, enemies there. And it's just a waste of your time. And then let's say you overload and you go into an attack. If you go to attack someone, then that gives the ability for everyone else to attack you. So keeping a reserved amount of troops on yourself and making sure that whoever you're attacking has a proper amount as well is the best way to go on that. And then of course, remembering the debuffs and the buffs per Primark. So, and that also includes like paying attention to the level. So if you're a level 1, let's say bronze taunter going up against, the maxed out, just before maxed out level silver 1 taunter, then you might find that it's going to kick your butt. I'm just saying. So really pay attention to what you're doing. Just like if you were scoping a base, scope the mechanics and pay attention. Are they equal in level to you when it comes to not just your base attack power, but your actual Primark power? Okay, so number 4. Don't forget to cross or look before you cross the road, basically, right? It's going to be the same way as you're traveling through Atlas. And this happens to the best of us. You're going out to attack an allied, another team or to help an allied team, and you find yourself accidentally on an enemy castle, and they take your troops before you can even help the other one. So granted, there are times that you're going to go through enemies' castles to get to a specific castle and bubble it along the way. But if you accidentally push the wrong castle or go the wrong direction, you could find yourself in a bad situation. Also, keep in mind that when you land on anything, make sure that you're not just left there. Like, let's say you're traveling around and you go to no man's land to get to somewhere and then you get called away. Move that guy before you get called away completely, before you actually walk away from the game. Because being a sitting duck on an enemy castle or NML is not a good idea. So always watch where you're going and make sure you know exactly what your path is going to be and how you're going to get there. And the best way to do this is making sure that you utilize, again, Atlas chats or your alliance chats, where they will actually put a hot link there with any castle's actual location that you can click on, and it's going to take you directly where you need to go. So be sure to utilize that wisely. Now, as for number 5, it would be failure to build troops daily. Guys, I get it. We all have those moments where we're just like, oh, I can't do any more attacks. But realistically, try not to be dormant. Try to at least get a certain amount built every day. And some teams do have minimums. So keep that in mind. Number 6, not taking advantage of events, okay? There are 4 rotations of different events. There's 3 different events. It's going to go troop event, gear event, troop event, and then your Primark leveling event. So by not using your resources wisely in these events, you're really failing to get back a better amount. So let's say, for example, you decide you're going to buy Atlas Elite one day and you do all these gold runs and you've got all this gold and you don't want to put it in the bank. You kind of want to hoard it or use it. So you decide, I'll just use the horns, restore some troops. But the problem is, it's like 3 days out before the troop event. You just wasted some massive points for yourself. So be sure anytime that you're utilizing any kind of resources, whether it be, the horns or your shards to build or upgrade different gear on your riders, or actually upgrading your Primarks, for example, or your Atlas riders themselves, try your best to not do those without, outside of the Atlas situation. Now, I get it. If you're a new, very, very new player to Atlas and you've got like the fighter, for example, you're going to want to level that up so that you can unlock the next section of Primarks. But outside of that, you really want to make sure that you only do the more resource heavy tasks in Atlas during the actual events. Now, another example of this is on the left-hand side on the little like achievements that you can do. All you have to do is build, for example, 10 different gear every week in order to get a prize for that, or to do so many writer missions to get a prize for that. And doing writer missions is going to just give you extra resources, including egg tokens as well. So again, take advantage of these events, but use your resources wisely. I know that for myself, this is a very important thing. For example, I get my elite membership. I usually like to straddle it over the Primark event and the Primark event and the troop event, so that I can really utilize that for both events, but only spend $5 for that month. Number 7, not partaking in Atlas raids or defense. What do I mean by this? So a lot of you have been known, especially in the beginning, to kind of like be afraid to come out and kind of ignore what's going on because it's a lot. But in all reality, partaking in these events are going to help you grow in Atlas. And sometimes we just need to get our hands dirty to really learn how things are done. So dig in there, pay attention to what people are doing, and just jump in there. If you get something wrong, it's not a big deal. Your leadership will work with you. They will help you. But don't just sit back and ignore it. Another reason this is important is because when we help our alliance, they help us, right? So if we're going out and we're helping another team that's in our alliance and we need help the next round, it's going to be easier to call upon them and less stress on yourself and your team. So make sure that you do that as well. Oh, you would think this would be a given. Number 8, leveling Primarks outside of event. And seriously, guys, you guys would think this would be a given, but I know my husband is guilty of this because he didn't want to waste his gold. Oh, and I've seen other people doing this. Do not do this, guys. If you have Primarks that need leveled up, or you have, Atlas Riders that need leveled up, do not waste that kind of points just doing that nonchalantly. Do that during the events. That is, to me, crazy that anybody would waste that. It's just a week or two, guys. Just hold it off, okay? Okay, the next one is going to have to be gold mishandling. Now, there are several things I want to go over in this one. This one, to me, is one of the bigger tips or bigger mistakes that I've personally seen other people doing in Atlas. One could literally be holding onto your gold and hoarding it because you don't want to help your team out, or whatever the reason might be. You don't want to wait for gold to be sent to you whenever. This can be a big mistake. Now, there are some people that have really got this down to a T, how they can hoard the gold and not be attacked. But remember, you do not have any ability to protect the amount of gold you have in your bank. So let's say you're trying to gather up 10 million gold in order to level up a dragon, a Primark. You could go in, do attacks. Once you get to like 3 million, put it in the bank. Same thing, 3 million, put it in the bank, and then have them send that to you at the end. Or you can ask your leadership to send you 10 million and then take the next 20 minutes just loading that into the bank so that you're not sitting there with gold on you. So that's one. Another way that we can mishandle our gold is buying a month's Atlas Elite. I don't know about you, but when I commit myself to a month of anything, I'm like, it never works out, right? So if I were you, if you are the type that's going to buy Atlas Elite, buy it by the week so that if something comes up, you're not wasting an entire 2-3 weeks, possibly, or just a week. I know for myself, the PvPs can be very exhausting and they can be very time consuming. So by the time I get done with them, I'm not really in the mood to farm gold. So I particularly like to have, take the time to do specifically, elite during the breeding event, just because I got to go in there and do XP runs anyways. And of course, the fortification event, just because it is a minor event. But the problem is with the fortification event, you could be under attack regularly and lose gold as well. So for me, the breeding event, make sure you have your food level down, go out to your gold attacks and utilize that during that time frame. And use that time, especially if it's overlapping with, one of your build-up events, to build up your troops or your Primarks. So for me, mishandling gold is a huge one. Last but not least, utilizing packs of gold packs or whatever, whenever you don't feel like doing a run. Look, I get it. I get that it could be exhausting, but using those gold packs could end up being something to regret later. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm guilty of that, and that's something I've really tried to stay away from, is using those gold packs to build troops. Let them build up so that you can use those for things like the Primark events, especially if the Primark event falls at a time frame where you're not going to get elite because, that's the troop event, or in the event that you don't even have elite. Let those build up so that you have that for those larger amounts. Another one would be utilizing your diamonds to help your team. So let's say you're not an elite member and you are asked to contribute, let's say 5 million gold per month to your team. And you're like, but I don't have elite and that's a lot of runs. So if you ask for gold during the Primark event, you're going to end up with diamonds that you would have never otherwise had, along with tons of other resources. Now, technically, you only earn those because, your players, your fellow teammates has put in gold that you were able to utilize. So during times like this, go through and count. Did you make 10,000 worth of diamonds? Did you make, just 1,000 worth of diamonds? And utilize those diamonds to put gold back in the bank. This would be a great way to show your team that you're appreciative of the support that they're giving you. Drum roll, please. Number 10, overloading Primarks with troops. Now, this is a huge one, guys. This is probably the biggest mistake that sometimes not even beginners make. New players, yes, but even older players tend to do this, and this is a massive mistake. This can get your team in some heaps of trouble. You put 30,000, troops on a Primark, land them right there on a castle, you are going to be seen and heard whenever another team comes in to take that juicy glory. So make sure you go into your team's wiki or talk to your leadership, listen to what they have to say when it comes to max loading your troops, which sometimes they will actually make specific per castle. So make sure you look into that and keep in mind that that's not the only reason. The other reason is because, again, if you put, let's say, 20,000 troops on your Primark, you go in to attack someone, whether it be a no man's land or an enemy castle, you do an attack and 5 other people can attack you at the same time. And when you come out, you're pretty well done. You have no troops left. So just try to keep a certain max load for yourself. Now, there is a way if you find yourself with too many troops on a Primark to undo this. I will be going over that in another video in the near future. But guys, this is probably the 10 biggest 10 biggest mistakes that most Atlas beginners make. Now, let me know if there's any mistakes that you have seen that, because there's tons of them, guys. This is just 10 of the biggest in my opinion. But for you, is there any specific mistakes that you're seeing being done by new players on your team or new players to Atlas that you think should be included in this list? If so, go ahead and drop that in the comment section below. And of course, before you guys leave, if you have anybody on your team that needs to see this, it's a great little hint. Drop them a link and let them check out this video. I appreciate your all support, and I will see you guys next time. Until then, happy hunting.